Now it's time for our G5 High Five, our round robin segment. This week I'll be participating with 2 picks. Ainello doing the heavy lifting with 3. Get us started here.
I'm going with kind of a gross one. I'm taking South Florida plus 13.5 at Tulsa on Friday night.
I think gross is an understatement. So they got interim head coach, right?
This
They're
is this is my tribute to Stuckey. I'm getting Stuckey's dumpster dive in a little early. So I'm hoping Stuck dives in as well, and then I'll be like, oh, welcome. This number's just too big for a Tulsa team that stinks. Tulsa shouldn't be laying 14, 13.5, 14, against anybody. They haven't covered a spread in 5 straight games. They're just 3-7 ATS, which is the same as South Florida is. And you look at South Florida, yeah, the bet the interim head coach principle has been pretty profitable throughout the whole year. They were tied last week at halftime against SMU, and they should have covered. But they went for 2 down 18 with a minute and a half left because God forbid you lose by 16 instead of 17. And then, just kick the field goal and get the cover. But whatever. I'm hoping he does it this week. As bad as South Florida is on defense, and they're horrible, I'm not going to say South Florida is good. This Tulsa offense is horrible. Davis Brin stinks. He leads the country in picks last year. He's got 8 this year. Was hurt a couple weeks ago, missed the game, came back last week, ended up getting benched because he played so bad. He's a senior. I think they're starting to let Braylon Braxton take over, but he's completing just 50% of his passes. This offense is 70th in passing and rushing. They're just not built to blow anybody out. And then defensively, while Tulsa has been good against the pass, it really struggles against the run. And running the ball is the only thing South Florida does well. They're 39th in the country, 14th in explosiveness. Last year, they had Jaron Magnum and Kelly Joyner who led the way, but both have only played 4 games this year. And instead, it has been star kick returner and Action Network Group of 5 All-American return man, Brian Battie. This dude is so fast. He's averaging 87 yards per game. He got over 100 yards in each of his last 3 games. Tulsa's just 83rd at defending explosiveness on the ground. So I think if they just feed Brian Battie on the ground, he can just outrush the Golden Hurricanes, and I think they cover this 2-touchdown spread.
Go with God on that one. I really hope that you're right. I still, if I had to basically sum up their entire season, it was me playing them in week 1 against BYU, and by the time I checked in on the game, they were already down 21-0. They gave up a 75-yard play to Puka Nacua to get the whole thing started. That's kind of how it's gone for South Florida. So I appreciate the fact that you're trying to fade another team who is probably not getting as much heat as they should be for being bad this year. And I agree, South Florida was certainly feisty against SMU, so maybe you're onto something there. But I'm just, at this point in the season, I'm going to be treating myself, now that there's some crossover games with Power 5 teams, I'm going to be treating myself to some good football. I'm going to go ahead with Florida State laying 24 against Louisiana. So FSU, here's the thing. In this particular game, it comes down to quarterback play. Jordan Travis has broken through. He is clearly one of the best dual threats in the entire country, all the way up to 9th in total QBR. His last 4 games, 11 touchdowns, 1 interception, added in 2 rushing touchdowns as well, against the Louisiana team that's still trading on its previous value. This is not the team that was, playing under Billy Napier for so many years. They were just dominating the Sun Belt West. They were a known, quantity in terms of that brand of football they were trying to play. This year, their offense has fallen off a cliff. They're 107th in success rate. They can't throw the ball, which is what they're going to need to do to keep up in this game and potentially, I should say, have a backdoor cover. All of these things, I think, are trending against them. And then finally, from an FSU perspective, we know how well they can run the football, but Louisiana is more than happy to give up huge plays, chunk plays through the air. So I think you're going to see, an FSU team that's still focused. The look-ahead game to Florida against Florida in a rivalry game in Week 13, I don't think that's as big or as looming as it would be if there was an opportunity to get into the college football playoff. So I don't think they're necessarily going to look past Louisiana in this game at 24. It is fine with me in terms of laying the points. I know we've been down on the Raging Cajuns, but is there anything I'm missing in this particular spot with a Sun Belt West team that's kind of reeling at this point?
I'm just a little confused because this whole time I thought the whole point of this podcast was to shine light and give some love to the little guys in the group of 5. And here you are, Benedict Calabrese, turning heel, picking against all we're supposed to be the G5 guys. You're picking against all the G5. What are we doing here? This isn't supposed to be.
How many times
Let's
do
give
I have
love
to
to the
pick
Power 5.
Rice How many times do I have to pick, these absolute
No,
dregs and talk about Nevada and like I've earned this. I've put in the work and I am ready to get on the fade train and get my last one, by the way, is a pro G5 pick. So we don't need to
by
get
the
too
way,
crazy.
aren't you listening? We're fading Rice. I told you that already.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Back to
I'm
you
going.
for your next pick.
I'm going with a fun one for everyone who loves the G5 and loves our G5 heroes. Houston, East Carolina, over 66.5. Who the hell is getting a stop in this game? You want to know how Houston followed up their brilliant defensive performance where they allowed 77 points and 9 passing touchdowns to SMU? They allowed 486 passing yards and 3 touchdowns to Temple. CJ Warner, Kurt Warner's kid, absolutely torched them through the year last week. They are now 107th in the country at defending passing success rate. Our boy Holton Ahlers is going to absolutely cook this secondary. This is a special day for Ahlers, too. This is senior night at ECU, and that's an extra special senior night considering he has been there since George Bush Sr. was in office. So I'm sure it's going to be emotional for him. He's already the school's all-time passing leader in yards, touchdowns, and he should have a huge matchup here, his last game in ECU. CJ Johnson and Keaton Mitchell both left last week's games with like what looked like very serious injuries. Johnson was stretchered off and taken to the hospital. Mike Houston said they're both fine. They've both been practicing and they're both expected to be 100% on Saturday. Don't know how it's possible, but I love it because I love CJ Johnson. Mitchell also has been running like a madman since Raji Harris got hurt. Houston D's not good against the run either. So I think they both have good games. On the flip side, Houston's 14th in the country in passing success. Clayton Tune and Tank Dell are one of the best connections in the country. ECU's defense has been great against the run, but their secondary has been torched. They're 108th in passing success in the country. Both teams' special teams are also just a mess. ECU especially is just so bad on special teams. So we could see short fields, blocked punts, fumbled punts. This should be a Holton Ahlers, Clayton Tune, absolute slugfest. We could see another 77-63 game. So I'll take the over here. Nobody's getting a stop in this one.
This is my favorite play of yours. Maybe the whole season. I think this is an absolute
Hell
hammer
yeah.
over. And I mean, we talked about Doug Belk, the $1 Million Man. You know what he was probably doing last night at, or 2 nights ago at midnight when it turned to November 15th? Just refreshing his Chase bank account to make sure that those direct deposits were still coming in. Because the fact that he's still cashing paychecks and coaching up a defense that is this bad is, I mean, I would feel nervous if I was him to go from one of the
Well,
best coordinators in the G5 to potentially getting canned all in
if
one
it
season.
if it makes him feel any better, he did lose the Broyles Award to Josh Gaddis, who also might get fired and is pretty much the worst offensive coordinator that doesn't work at Texas A&M. So at least that makes him feel a little bit better.
All right, you called me out for no G5 love. How about this for G5 love? Troy minus 14 against
Hell
Louisiana.
yeah.
Monroe, 2 wins away from winning the Sun Belt West. So they are locked in. Their defense has been just absolutely amazing. Last 5 games, they're holding opponents to 11 points per game. They're 8th nationally in limiting explosive plays. ULM's defense is on the opposite end of the spectrum. They are so bad that this could be a showcase for Troy's offense. 100th in success rate, 110th in havoc, 123rd in takeaways. The Warhawks are a disaster at this point in the season. I love Troy. I understand that they're a low-scoring team. They don't do anything particularly well offensively, but I think they get to 28, 31 points in this game, and this could be a goose egg. This could be a shutout for Monroe in this spot. I love what Troy has done. I think they're one of the best stories in all of the G5. And as we mentioned, at this point in the season, when you get to bowl eligibility or potentially have a rivalry game on deck, you can have those look-ahead spots. But because they have South Alabama, for all intents and purposes, a half game behind them in the Sun Belt West standings, there's no look-ahead potential whatsoever. So coming off of their 10-9 win against Army, I see their offense tripling that offensive output and getting past the Warhawks. What are your thoughts on the Carlton Marshalls and the rest of the Troy Trojans?
You know I love Troy. I'm never gonna say no to betting on them. For my last pick of the G5 high five, I'm gonna say a phrase I don't know has ever been spoken by any human ever. I'm gonna lay double digits on the road with UNLV.
Ooh. Oh boy. Okay. Hey, listen, Randall Cunningham's not walking through that door to play quarterback and punter, but I'm listening.
UNLV just needs wins against Hawaii and Nevada to reach a bowl game for the first time since 2013. They've reached the postseason just once in the last 20 years, and just 4 times in their 45-year history. They've just combined for just 6 wins in the previous 3 years, and they're on pace to do that against the 2 worst teams in the Mountain West. Doug Brumfield is back. He missed the last 3 games, despite the fact that they've lost 5 straight games. They lost to San Jose State, Air Force, and Notre Dame, all without Brumfield. Fine losses. And then since his return, they lost to San Diego State by 4 and Fresno State by 7. So I don't think their results have really been indicative of how much better this team is than last year's team. By the way, a team last year that blew out Hawaii. And like I said, I think they're much, much better. Aiden Robbins is averaging 95 yards per game. That's second in the Mountain West, 9 touchdowns. Brumfield has 6 scores with his legs too. And Hawaii is horrific against the run. They've allowed 222 yards per game, 5.8 yards per carry, 127th in the country. They've given up 27 rushing touchdowns this season. Colin Wilson's power ratings have Hawaii 128th out of 131 teams. He makes UNLV a 12.5-point favorite on a neutral field. There is no bigger myth in college football than Hawaii having home field advantage on the island. It's one of those things that everyone always assumes they're going to because, the tough travel and the time zone, and you got to be on a plane, and, Colt Brennan, and, they're not walking through that door. Since 2014, teams playing against Hawaii on the island are 33, 19, and 2 against the spread, 61% cover rate. They have 2 winnable games for UNLV. They should be double-digit favorites in both. I think they're going to be dialed in and focused, and they are, I think, more than similar to UConn. They know how much this opportunity does not come around often in Las Vegas. I think UNLV beats Hawaii by double digits.
The fact that UNLV opted for a field goal down 10 on Friday night, killing my Fresno -9.5 play. I'm just going to sit this one out. I'm too emotional about it. It's still stinging.
Hey, that just tells me they know the spread. Good for them. That's perfect. That's what I want. Know the spread. Go for it, baby.